All right, let's start with a training minute. You should all have in your seats 2 cards, one red card and one green card. So take those out and hold them up in the air. Hold them up high. Everyone should have them. One red and one green. Good. Okay, you can put those down. Now, step 2. Put the green card in your right hand. Put the red card in your left hand. The green card in your right hand, the red card in your left hand. Now, the green card means, yes, I agree. It could mean, Ameen. It could mean that's true. I accept that. It could mean that I am a handsome person or I am very pretty. You're welcome to hold those up at any time. It's like instant feedback for me. The red card means no, negative, false. I disagree with that. And again, you can hold those up at any time and so that the people around you know that that's a point that I don't agree with. Because you may not agree with everything I'm going to share with you in the next 15 minutes. All right, so let's practice real quick. I'm going to ask you a question. You hold up the card. Today is Saturday. Oh. Hold them up high. There you go. Okay. All right. The capital of Norway is Tokyo. Okay, good. Good. Mostly. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim wa salatu wa salam ala rasulih al-Kareem wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wa man nastanna bi sunnati ila yawmiddin. All praise is due to Allah, and we ask that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala send His blessings on Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, as well as on all of those who follow the path of righteousness until the day of judgment. Quick question. Use the cards to answer this question. How many of you personally know someone who has dropped out of the Muslim community? Someone who has dropped out of the Muslim community. Hold your cards up. Now look around. Folks, turn around. Look at all the green cards. How many of you are less active in the masjid today than you were only 5 years ago? Less active today. Hold your cards up. Everyone should vote. Okay. Somewhat mixed. The fastest growing religious group in the United States today are the nuns. As in none of the above. When asked on surveys, what is their religion? When asked about their religious affiliation, they reply with none of the above. About 75% of Americans between the ages of 19 and 29 now consider themselves to be spiritual, but not religious. And of course, this includes us. This includes the Muslims. So UnMosqued is not the same thing as being non-Muslim. It's totally different. The UnMosqued still believe in Allah, but they don't believe that you or your masjid can help them get closer to Allah. And that's key. Regardless of whether they grew up in the masjid or not, they are unmosqued. So ultimately, this presentation is about the masjid. I still care about the masjid. And if you care, and I want you to join me, let's roll up our sleeves, and before we leave today, all of us can have something to do. I'll spare you my research. We really just don't have time. And I'll spare you all of my resources except for one tiny little detail. Ultimately, my questions, my survey led me to a single dilemma, and this is the only question that I use now. Why do you feel disengaged? If you feel pulled by the environment, it's normal. It's normal to get busy during high school and college. It's normal to get busy, to not have enough time to spend at the masajed when you're about to get married or when you've just started a new job, a new role, when there's been a major change. Dropping out during these times happens for most faiths. We've always had dropouts. But it has not always been a problem. Here's the problem. Pulled by the masjid, pulled by the environment, means we did not leave the masjid. Pushed by the masjid means that the masjid left us, and that's the problem. That's unacceptable. We're losing customers every day. And so to get a sense of whether this was just something that I was experiencing, when I was asking people, I created a website. It's a very quick demonstration. You can do this now. You can go to UnMosqued.com. What I want you to do is to look at each post. Is it a pulled by the environment or pushed by the masjid? And what you'll see is that most of these are pushed by the masjid. It's a very quick way to see how people are responding. In less than a month that this has been up, we've had more than 400 people respond. This is a problem. Next. I constantly see more of the older generations at the masajid than the younger ones. I could share many examples of this. But bottom line is we need to accept our role. We need to accept the fact that we are culpable for this. We are complicit for scaring away the next generations, the newest generations. They describe the masajid as being hypercritical, judgmental, too sensitive, too political, out of touch with reality. They say that the sermons are disconnected from the real world. The masajid are not hospitable places to express doubt, that the imams are talking heads with talking points. And it doesn't even matter if you agree or not. It doesn't matter if you feel the blame or not, because we will all suffer the same fate unless we do something today. UnMosqued.com, I hope, is a chance for us to rewrite the script. And maybe it's a last chance. If nothing else, I hope this leads to new thinking. We've got 5 levers on this community. And I think that they're all represented here in this audience. 5 levers. The first are community leaders, Imams, Khatibs, the youngest generations, the millennials and the Gen Xers. And lastly, the whole community. And I'm going to speak to each one of you. The most important population that we serve are the millennials, the newest generation. The millennials were born between 1982 and 2001. They're the largest generation in history, at 95 million in the U.S. alone. That is approximately 30% of the U.S. population. The next most important population after them is the next most numerous. And that's the one that came before them. That's the Gen X. Generation X. Why? Why are the 20 and 30-somethings and the 40-somethings so important? Because they are shaping the future of American Islam, not the masajid. Our masajid are clinging to outdated formulas. All-nighters, basketball tournaments, those are a joke. We outgrew that in elementary school. So I'm going to ask you a question. Does your masjid have an intentional strategy for reaching the millennials, the youngest generation? Green or red? Does your masjid have an intentional strategy for reaching out to them? Do you see this constantly? Hold your cards up, hold them high, and look around. Let me ask you a follow-up question. Does your masjid participate in 3 or more outreach events every month? 3 or more outreach events every single month. Look at all of the red in the room. Let's talk about this briefly. We know about this massive population. So how many of us have actually studied them? You might have actually raised some from this generation. You might have raised 2 generations of the millennials and the Gen X. But how many of us have actually learned their questions and understood their experiences? The 20-somethings of today are not slightly different than the previous generation. They are discontinuously different. The current generation has grown up on technology, pop culture, media, entertainment, an increasingly secular society. They don't even teach them cursive handwriting anymore. For what? These kids grow up texting. They grow up typing. There's never been a period of greater social and technological change. So their attitudes are all shaped by this. In other words, you don't get it. We won't understand them. And when you can accept that, then my challenge to all of the community leaders, my challenge to the thought leaders in the room, the zonal directors, is to hire youth ministers. A youth minister knows the new ways of instructing, engaging, and developing the lives of young people. A youth minister's goal would be to create a setting so appealing, a presentation so engaging, and content so helpful that the UnMosqued people would not only want to come back the following week, but they would want to bring a friend. That doesn't happen now. Youth ministers know where the customers are. They go out to them. They go to the colleges, to the high schools, to the Starbucks, to the malls. A youth minister can be the role model. So all we have to do is just open up our doors to them, make them feel welcome. That's my challenge to the community leaders. My generation has grown up with a lot of fiqh. It's the science of something. Why we do what we do. And most of us have heard or read more hadith than many of the companions. The current model is that when a person feels spiritually low, you start filling them up with knowledge. You buy them a book, they go talk to the Imam, they take a new class. Strangely, that hasn't brought us any closer to this deen. Strangely, that deep knowledge hasn't brought us any closer to the masajed than our 30s and in our 40s. If you want the masjid filled with people who know a lot of Quran and hadith, then you fill them up with lectures and speeches. But if you want people that make a difference in the community, then you give them handles, next steps, action items, things to do, how to implement this verse, how to use this hadith in a daily life, in your daily life. Show me how to implement this verse. That's what we're asking for. Because we don't need 6,000 ayat. And we don't need 7,000 hadith. Don't end quote me on that. We need 6 verses that we live by. We need 7 hadith that ground us spiritually every single day. My point is that we don't need deep knowledge. We don't need a theoretical faith. We need a simple faith. I've got a question for you. And I want you to think about this. Why do you still go to the masjid? Think about it. What I have found is that most people continue to go to the masjid today because they want relationships. Think about it. That is the primary objective of the day-to-day masjid. You are looking to strengthen those relationships. And the chief relationship officer should be the imam. The masjid has one full-time employee. If they're not building relationships, then what are they doing? So question. How many of you personally know the imam at your local masjid? Meaning you know them and they know you. Green cards or red cards. How many of you personally know the imam? On a first name basis. Interesting. If the answer is yes, well, alhamdulillah, there were a lot of green cards, then how many of you agree that your imam has helped you build relationships with the Creator and with other people? That the imam facilitates those relationships? I'm going to pause now. We're going to try something else. I want you to turn to the person on your right or on your left, either in front of you or behind you. I want you to say salam, introduce yourself, tell them your name, get their name, and write it down on the green card. Do you see how simple that was? Has that ever happened at your masjid? Has that ever happened at your masjid? Now look, you might have met one new person just now. Imagine if you did this every week from now till the end of 2013. You would know 50 people, at least. If you knew 50 people at your masjid, you would know everybody. You would know everybody. How long have you been going to that masjid? And how many people do you know already? 85% of people who join a church say they did that because of a pastor, a neighbor, a friend, or a family member asked them to. So my challenge to the Imams is to invite people to your masjid. Help your flocks build deeper roots at your masjid. When people are rooted in a specific space, then it becomes their third place. When people go to the masjid and they know the names of 5 people there, they're more incentivized to go in the first place. When they know the names of 10 people there, that's an easy half hour. If you knew the names of 50 people there, you wouldn't want to leave. We need more people saying, that's my masjid. That's my imam. Picture a place that is bursting at the seams before the call for the prayer is even issued. The speaker is enchanting and electric. The message is rational and inspirational. The prayer is a culmination, a release of emotion. And the people are revived with commitment. They're glowing with absolve. The community takes flight. Great khutbahs give people wings. They are recharged to make it through the week. And for the overwhelming majority of the Muslim Ummah, it's the only source of continuing Islamic education and motivation every week. It is the single source. 30 minutes for most of the people at the Ummah. If your masjid can nail this every single week, you'll get a free pass on so many other things. If your masjid does nothing other than give amazing khutbahs, I tell you, people will overlook everything else. And the masajid would be packed before they give the adhan. But if your masjid fails at this, if your masjid fails here, it doesn't matter how clean your restrooms are. I'm not going to tell you that your masjid is doing superbly or is failing miserably. Instead, I want to ask you just 1 or 2 questions. How many of you remember the topic of the last khutbah you attended? The topic of the last khutbah. Green card or red card? Hold your cards up. Hold them up. Look around. Look around. Let me ask you a follow-up to that. Has that khutbah changed your life in a meaningful way? Can you think of 3 examples where you were able to implement that every single day? How many of you know the topic of the next khutbah that you're going to attend? Look, your generation continues to go to the weekly khutbahs because it's baked into your DNA. Be honest about it. The reason that you go is because it's a part of your cultural imperative. Really, you have the tolerance to sit through 20, 50, 100 meaningless khutbahs because it's a part of your tradition. Most people don't even expect anything from the khutbah. You go there with 0 expectations. So when nothing is delivered, you walk out and it's okay. It's just something that you do. It's something that you've grown up doing. The newest generations have a 3 strikes and you're out policy, if you're lucky. Oh khatibs, my challenge to you is to get the khutbah out of the masjid. We need to create sticky khutbahs. Create messages worth sharing. When was the last time someone called you and said, you gotta listen to this guy? Today's khutbah was awesome. I gotta tell you all about it. They talked about this and this and this. When was the last time that happened? Spread the message over the week, over the month. Tell people what the upcoming khutbah is going to be about. And then remind them. Then after the khutbah, follow it up with a related message. Let all the messaging that week, that month, focus on that khutbah and on the upcoming khutbahs. This month at our masjid, we're talking about family. Why haven't we been able to do that? Look, the responsibility of the khatib actually extends to the parking lot, because that's where the khutbah begins. If a person has a bad experience getting to you, then your message starts with 2 strikes against you. This is probably a good time to make a really quick joke. One guy went to the Jummah prayer, and he got held up at the office, so the masjid parking lot was totally full. And he was frantically driving around, and finally he was looking for a parking spot, and he just turned to Allah and he said, "Oh Allah, please help me. If you open up a parking space, then from now on, I'll come to the masjid on time, I'll make my prayers on time." And right then he saw a space. It opened up right in front of him. And he said, "Oh, never mind, Allah, I found one." My message to the newest generations is a simple question. What have we done for the broader community? What have we given back to this society? My challenge to the millennials, to the Gen Xers, is to develop service projects for your community. And I swear, if your community tries this, if you give it a shot, this could be the most galvanizing force that your community has ever initiated. It brings people together like they were never before. When a group of people from your masjid gets on a bus and goes to Habitat for Humanity and you build a house for homeless people, or you go to downtown and you feed homeless people in the park, you feed them soup or you make them sandwiches and you go deliver them, it becomes the strongest force to bring your community together. You don't have to take my word for it. Try it. Try it. A signature service project is a galvanizing force. It's one of the most amazing things that we can do. How many of us can say that our masjid stands for wiping out homelessness in Houston? How many of us can say that our masjid stands for ending literacy in our community? The best thing that you will find is that it will bring people together. My friend at the gym surprised me during a workout, and he told me basically that he was a Muslim too. And I asked him which masjid he went to, and he shook his head and said that the last time he went to the masjid, while he was walking in, somebody put his finger on my friend's tattoo on his neck, and he said that your prayer will not be accepted with this. So my friend turned around and he walked out. He hasn't been back to the masjid. I got several comments from women who talk about the painful experiences they've had when they wore nail polish to the masjid. The people we need at the masjid are not coming. We need sinners. You know why therapy is so popular? Because people can go to a place and say, "Hey, my name is Atif and I've messed up." Unhealthy masjids don't destroy healthy Muslims. They destroy the youngest and the weakest Muslims. Our masajid are catering to the minority at the expense of the majority. 95 million millennials in the U.S. alone. Most Muslims don't have beards. Most Muslims don't wear hijab. Most of us are weak Muslims. We're holding on to Islam by the very tips of our fingernails. We need help. And so we go to the masjid to get help. The mosque needs to be a hospital for the broken, not a guild for the handful of righteous people. A guild very quickly becomes insulated. It becomes unfriendly to outsiders. It's judgmental. It's self-righteous. If I was talking about a business, I would say that it's toxic. A toxic masjid is a powerful anti-dawah force. So I ask, what is the strongest force at your masjid? Culture. Culture is all of the shared assumptions, the beliefs, the values. Every group has a culture. This group has a culture. It's different than what you would find at ISNA, right? Culture is very powerful. It creates identities. It drives loyalty. And so the single most powerful force in determining masjid growth or decline is nothing other than culture. Culture is stronger than knowledge. Culture eats strategy for breakfast. In fact, even in the masjid, culture trumps religion. Have you ever been to a masjid where everyone's wearing a cap? It's culture. Can you tell the difference between Madrasa Islamiyah and Masjid al-Faruq? I'm not saying either one is right or wrong. It's culture. People dress differently. They talk differently. They pray differently. It's just culture. In the end, you decide what your masjid's culture is going to be. And I conclude with this. Do you want to be inclusive and accepting? Or do we want to be a masjid for masjid people? Do you want to be transparent and open? Or do you want to be a hidden island with high barriers to entry? Do we want to be a valued community partner? Or do we want to continue inbreeding? Do we want to be a community known for our scholarly knowledge? Or do we want to be a community known for planting trees, for serving the homeless, for giving scholarships? Do we want to be around for generations to come? Or should we just assume that if the Creator wanted us around, then He'll facilitate that? My challenge to the Muslim community is the hardest challenge of all. I'm going to ask you to do something totally blasphemous. Go to church. Go to church. You heard right. I say go to church. Let's see what the competition is doing. Go to Second Baptist. Go to Lakewood. Go to Carrie Shook's church in the Woodlands. Just walk in. Take the shuttle from the parking lot to the front door. Talk to a few people. Drink the coffee. Go check out the restrooms. Watch the show. I'm not saying convert. I didn't say drink the Kool-Aid. Do they have programs in other languages? Do they have activities for kids? Do they have shuttles that take you from the parking lot? Do they give you donuts? Do you meet people there? Let's see what the competition is doing. There's nothing I can do to help us see where people are going, why people are becoming unmosqued, than if I show you what the competition is doing. You don't have to go to the mega churches. Lakewood Church is the fastest growing church in the world. You don't have to go to that one. Go to a neighborhood church. At a strip mall church outside of my neighborhood, they offer jobs training. It's free. There's no conversion. They show you how to use a computer. They show you how to use Word, Excel, PowerPoint. All of that stuff is free. And they do it every single day. We go to our masajid 5 times a day. There's more cars in that church parking lot, in that strip mall, than there are at Sinat Masjid. Go to church. And so we must take the following steps. We got to admit that we're responsible. Let's take ownership. Let's start believing that we can be real levers in this community. We can make a change. And accept the change. It is uncomfortable. Changing is uncomfortable. Being forced to change is more uncomfortable. Go to UnMosqued.com. Go to the website. Everyone here can take just one of those boxes and own it. And say that from now on, I'm going to ensure that all the signs in the masajid are going to be free of spelling and grammar mistakes. Everyone here can warmly welcome new faces. Everyone here can encourage good behavior at the masjid. And more importantly, you can stop bad behavior. I remember one time some kids were running around the masjid during the salah, and afterwards in the foyer, a father, he caught his kid right in front of us. And he smacked him hard. The kid fell down. Isa Parada, in 1 second, he jumped over there and he said, "Hey brother, calm down. We don't do that. That's not how the Prophet ﷺ dealt with this and that." It happened in 1 second. And how often do we see bad behavior at the masjid? How often do we stand up and do something about it? I wish I was there to tell my friend, you know what, don't worry about him. I got him. Don't worry about the tattoo. It's okay, just come on in. I wish I was there. UnMosqued.com. UnMosqued is our last chance to rewrite the script. Here at the end, ultimately this presentation is not meant to point the finger. The site is not meant to be a gripe fest. Instead, all of this is a vision. Change is a pain in the neck, but we have to. Because if we don't, then I'll share with you one experience. A few years ago, I went to Brazil. Specifically, I went to Curitiba. It's in the middle of the country. About 100 years ago, Brazil granted free land and citizenship to a number of Middle Eastern countries. If you come over here, start businesses, we'll give you land. We'll give you citizenship. And so there are a lot of Muslim entrepreneurs that started businesses there. Only 2 generations later, only a few names remain. And as we drove around, we saw empty masajid. There was something that used to be a masjid. It's now something else. In fact, one of the biggest weekly events there is a Jummah Bazaar. And in the middle of that Jummah Bazaar, it still keeps the name. In the middle of that is a mosque. The Imam of that mosque is the tour guide. He says that nobody prays there. You don't need a degree from the University of Medina or Al-Azhar to give tours. سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك ونشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت ونستغفرك ونتوب إليك. جزاكم الله خيرا والسلام عليكم ورحمة الله.